Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
This is our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Again, can't say the word. Give this video a like.
Check out our podcast below in the description. Subscribe to that as well.
Okay, John, I have what I think is the biggest player matchup week one in the NFL season, and it just so happens to be in the Niners-Cardinals game. We spent so much time before the draft talking about, was Isaiah Simmons a player without a position, or was he the ultimate chess piece? The Cardinals took him, hoping he's the ultimate chess piece, and when they took him, we all thought the same thing, and you and I talked about it on our draft show. They got this guy for George Kittle, and so here he is now week one. We all talk about Kyler. If this player turns out to be the ultimate chess piece, Isaiah Simmons, then it changes the dynamic of every 49ers game against the Cardinals in George Kittle's prime.
Am I remembering this correctly? Was it him on the video beating Travis Etienne in a race? Wasn't that a thing before the draft?
That
the
I
two
don't
of them
remember.
race.
I
think he beat Travis Etienne in a race. Obviously, he's this
like a
6'4"
workout or something?
freak. Yeah, they were just racing at Clemson's practice facility, shirt off, both shredded, hauling ass, and Isaiah Simmons beat him. And the one thing I was consistently told by people in the league that get it right a lot more than they get it wrong is when they evaluated Isaiah Simmons, they did not see a position. They did not see him as a middle linebacker because he's not physical enough. He's your classic guy. The media, they see a couple flash plays and they love. Hakeem Butler, for example.
Can I just add something to that? Flash plays and physical measurements.
Well, physical measurements are out of control.
He's 3.5, 230.
He went to he went to the combine. He blew it out of the water. And every once in a while, a guy goes to the combine, blows out of the water, and becomes DK Metcalf, right? And we feel like he's going to be a star. And a lot of guys go and they become. Remember the guy the Jets drafted a long time ago, Vernon Goldston, who was looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger and was the worst player in the league. So that's hit and miss. Now the pushback on Isaiah Simmons on a positive note is he played on arguably the best team in the last 5 years, right? I mean, he was a starter for several years on Clemson, who was basically just Alabama, Clemson, LSU, Ohio State, basically have been the same thing for the last handful of years. So you just go, this guy could do it there. Here was my always pushback for Isaiah Simmons once I got the information that he's not a plug-and-play player. Clemson pays their defensive coordinator, Brett Venables, over $2 million a year. I think he makes 2.2. He's the highest paid coordinator in all of college sports, and he earns it because their defense is elite. He is an elite coordinator. They have to pay him that much because wouldn't you be shocked if people haven't offered him defensive coordinator jobs in the NFL? I mean, we see it all the time with other guys.
So he was in the mix for. I think it's weird because he hasn't really been a head coaching candidate for that many jobs. I think he was in the mix at UNLV, and there was another job in the state of Texas he was in the mix for.
Maybe Rice or something like that.
Yeah, something weird. So it does feel
I'm just talking coordinator in the league.
No, I understand. But I'm just saying there's something there. I don't know if he doesn't interview well. I don't know what the deal is with him. I've never really talked to anybody about him. But
I'm with you. His resume speaks for itself right now.
Coordinator, kind of college guy that gets offers is kind of a owner thing. I wonder, has an NFL head coach offered him a DC job? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be shocked. I think we consistently see it with new head coaches stealing the top coordinator. You're right. It's an owner thing. It's a sexy thing. But this guy's resume, he kicks ass. And he can use guys like this. Vance Joseph, to me, has proven to be an atrocious defensive coordinator. When he took over the Denver Broncos, they were dominant defense, immediately got bad. Last year in Arizona, depending on what metric you look at, they were easily one of the bottom 2 or 3 defenses in the league. This guy is... You have to use him like a chess piece. Part of what made Troy Polamalu so great, right, is he had Dick LeBeau being his defensive coordinator. Part of what made, over the years, some players like Aldon Smith or Khalil Mack is who's using him? Vic Fangio. The defensive coordinator, some of the guys with Pete over the years. How can you use these safeties? Well, because they got Pete or Gus Bradley. Now you see with Robert Saleh, his ability to utilize that defense. They were the Seattle defense. I do think it matters, Guy, and the one advantage you would say is under no circumstances, even if this guy turns out to be a really good player, George Kittle should have a dramatic advantage week one of the guy's first ever game. Correct? if his job in the passing game is to check him.
Yeah, and George will always have the advantage with his head coach.
So he can scheme with the head coach, so that's an advantage right there. Kyle Shanahan versus Vance Joseph. And then George is just in the peak of his powers, I guess this is his fifth year. This is his fourth year. And he's a dominant player. And even if Isaiah Simmons, if you're on the glass half full, becomes a great player, it takes a little while.
My thing is, to me, the season's here. We've talked about this guy forever. So whatever we think he is, I finally get to see it this week. You know? Like,
wouldn't you be shocked if he's not running around after 85? Like, wouldn't that be the guy?
What'd you draft him for?
Yeah, why not?
But to your point, it doesn't help him that this is his week 1 game, right?
When Kyle's moving him all over the place and George.
Do you think Kyle's been getting ready? Kyle knows what this guy's there to do.
Yes.
And I think one thing, and this is what to me, one of the best things about Hard Knocks is watching guys. A lot of times you see players making highlight plays is what gets highlighted in a game. Hard Knocks, you get to see guys making mistakes because sometimes they just focus on a rookie. I can only imagine how much it's not even going to be with Kyle. It doesn't. I guess you can call it window dressing. Window dressing almost feels like it's a little more smoke. With Kyle, there's so many different things he can do out of so many different spots. How is he going to mentally hang with all the things that are getting thrown at him? Now, if you're him, you'd say the advantage that Isaiah Simmons has is he plays on the same team with Chandler Jones. And if you're George Kittle, you're just involved sometimes with Chandler Jones, right? You just have a lot going on. Now, maybe it helps. He's got Trent. Maybe he doesn't have to help as much with Chandler Jones this year. But there are a lot of responsibilities for George. And so somebody playing him in some ways maybe has less on their mind than George has on his mind. I don't know. But the Niners run the ball a lot. So Simmons will have a lot on his mind too. But
it's a very, very tough first game for a dynamic young rookie defender, right, to go up against Kyle Shanahan. As Robert Saleh said when Javon Kinlaw was struggling, he said, listen, it's hard for any rookie to go up against this offense every day in practice. It's a difficult task.
At least if you play, like, it's probably even harder being a quote-unquote chess piece, right? Like when Alden Smith was a rookie, it was like, Alden, guess what? You got Justin Smith next to you. Just go get the quarterback. It was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Easy to do for a rookie. Easy at least to conceptualize.
Like wouldn't you say this week for Javon Kinlaw, for example, listen, we're going to give you X number of plays. You're going up against a bad offensive line. We're not asking you to make remarkable plays. Just push the pocket, right? Just grab your guard and push them into Kyler and Bosa and Ford and Eric Armstead. They'll corral the little guy. And your job, just push them. Where you got Isaiah Simmons, you're like, well, when they're in this formation, you got to cover this way. When they're doing this, you got to check the run, the play action. Listen, I'm not the biggest fan of Isaiah Simmons, but it's going to be hard to judge him on this game if he looks really bad. Because it'd be easy for Kyle to have him swimming a little bit, right? Because the big thing with this offense, if the running game works, the play action stuff, the play action boots, you can get fooled quickly.
Yeah, but to me, part of this is not does he shut George Kittle down. It's just there's going to be some opportunities. Does he look like athletically, if he's in the right place, if he's put in the right place, he can do the things that are necessary? Because there's a lot of guys that in the right spot, they can't do what's necessary against George Kittle.
Yeah.
So do we see this guy in the backfield a couple times? Do we see him running stride for stride with George down the seam and turning his head and breaking up a pass? Right. I think part of this with Isaiah Simmons is like, do we see the flash plays today?
Because wouldn't you imagine, given the injuries, that George is going to get, at minimum 6-7 targets?
Yeah, he had 8 the last time he played in this game coming off an injury, but he's got, remember his hammy, it's like, is his hammy 100% this week?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just
so
a lot of injuries.
All I know is Budda Baker's happy to have the help.
Yeah, he got paid too.
That's right. They have invested a lot in they've got
they do have a lot of they do have a lot of some talented players.
For sure.
Right?
Even, Jalen Thompson was a 5th rounder, but he was a supplemental guy. So they went out of their way to take him last year. Or was that last year or 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was last year.
Last year. Budda, what's his name? The nickelback from UW was a 2nd-round pick. Obviously, Isaiah Simmons.
Patrick Peterson is probably not quite
Byron
what he
Murphy.
once was. Sorry. Byron Murphy. Oh, yeah. They drafted him, remember, last year in the
2nd round.
The first pick of the 2nd round. So you're right. They've invested not just money, but picks now. They got several high picks. And the one thing you would say is Chandler Jones is a star, right? Like if Chandler Jones played for the Cowboys or Seattle, don't you think he'd be talked about a little differently? I think he does get talked about, but they haven't been good the last couple of years, so you don't get to watch him play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chandler Jones
took
is
two
what
fourth-round
everyone thought. Chandler Jones, what everyone thought Clowney was going to become.
Yeah.
Dominates.
They took 2 fourth-round defensive linemen this year. So
Well, Trent Williams, Chandler Jones, another sneaky fun matchup.
it really is.
You know,
It really is.